welcome to the Ginger Stage. I'm super excited. Today we've got Shania here, and we're going to be talking about stress and anxiety and everything you can do to heal your body. Many people probably suffer from stress and anxiety and don't even know it. So I'm glad that you're here. Shania is incredible. As you know or may not know, she has advanced degrees in nutrition, herbology. She's a wealth of information. She's been formulating for years. She personally helped me overcome some issues and health problems, and I've watched her heal and help so many people. So I'm so excited that you found her. You're in for a real treat. So Shania, should we kick it off?
Let's kick it off. All right. This is a topic that's so important to me. Over the last few years, I feel like the levels of stress around the world, not only just in this country, have just exponentially increased. And I'm meeting more and more people who suffer from stress and anxiety. Some people just don't even know it, like you said. And what's really interesting, we're going to go over what is stress. And stress, I guess we've always been taught that stress is psychological or emotional. You're stressed about a poor relationship, or maybe you have a mean boss, or, financial troubles. That is all stress. But we're here to talk today about all the different ways that stress can come to you. And it's not only emotional and psychological. It can be physical, it can be nutrition, it can be chemical, it can be environmental. So the difference between short-term stress and long-term stress.
This sounds exciting. I know I learned so much already about stress and even anxiety, and how much I didn't even realize I had anxiety till I realized I had it. And it's life-changing when you get rid of that underlying emotion. So I wonder how many people out there after this class will realize how much stress or anxiety they've been experiencing and had no idea.
Definitely. I mean, sometimes it's really obvious, obviously. I suffered when I was 27. I went through an adrenal crash, and we're going to get into that later in this.
Yeah, your story is amazing.
But it was very obvious to me because I was having attacks every time I went into a store. I would have a panic attack after one. And so that was very obvious. But other people, maybe certain behavior, such as, obsessive compulsive behavior, even just being, I guess, calorie obsessed.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
So our stories were on the website. You need to check them out. But she helped me realize, I now realized I had a lot of underlying anxiety and had no idea. And stress probably too, you noticed, huh?
Definitely. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's first talk about external versus internal. Okay. So external stresses will come from the environment, from different psychological situations, social situations. You're driving home and you're in traffic and feel that, you feel that stress inside of you because you need to get somewhere. Even other external stressors can come from the environment, and we're going to get more into that. Internal stressors can come from just what's going on inside, nutritional deficiencies. Even if you've had an injury or surgery or illness, those can be stressors on your body. And what's really incredible is that there's short-term acute stress, and then there's long-term chronic stress. And the stress response was originally, part of our body to save us. Wow. We would have these incredible stress responses where our sympathetic nervous system is activated, and the different chemicals and neurotransmitters like norepinephrine and epinephrine are released, and that helps us run away from whoever's trying to get us. Maybe that saber-toothed tiger or whatever's trying to get us. We can run away because blood goes to our extremities and our heart starts pumping and our eyes are more focused. But then, when you're under that type of stress, the things that don't need to be prioritized, like your hormones, digestion, things like that, they're not prioritized because it's not part of your survival.
Yeah, when I hear you talk about that, I literally was on a hike the other day, and I came around a corner, and there was this massive moose. And it was this season where there's a name for it. It'll come to me. It charged me. And moose are very dangerous. And I took off running. I've never run so fast in my entire life. I literally thought I was going to die. I looked back. It was chasing me. Anywho, I had this huge rush I felt like this release, like that they talk about for fight or flight. But I tell you what, I didn't die, obviously. But the rest of the day, I was so sick, like really like physically my head hurt, my body. Like I was like, what happened to me? I felt like I hit by a train. And that's when I hear you talk, I realized that kind of stress, that low level, if you had that ongoing, what it can do to you, because that acute stress left me feeling like empty after.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's really interesting, well, first of all, I have to say that the same thing happened to me on my ridge top on the farm. Is I was hiking by myself with my two cats, Geraldine and Tomas, and the dogs, because the dogs had run away and they had run down because there was a bear. And they chased the bear. So I was on the ridgetop by myself and nobody else around, nobody even on the farm with me that day.
Yeah.
And I hear this big thing coming, like
That's
literally
scary.
right
Oh,
there.
yeah. Very
And I was
scary.
like, the dogs sound so loud right now. And bear just pumped, like, and okay, granted the bear didn't chase me.
Yeah.
But I have never run so fast in my life all the way back home. And that is the fight or flight.
It was a surge.
It's a surge of energy, and that is designed to help us survive.
Released. Yeah, I felt it charged through my body, like, and I ran and I'd never run before. It was amazing to experience that. Never experienced it.
Oh my gosh. Well, and what's interesting is after these stress hormones and chemicals are released, after that, cortisol is released, which is known as our stress hormone. That's released to keep the energy going. And that's where we get into some problems, especially when stress becomes constant or chronic. And so we'll get into that. But I first want to get into different types of stress because it's a very new phenomenon that stress can be nutritional and it can be chemical. So basically, nutritional stress could mean processed foods, excessive sugar, excessive caffeine, alcohol, over or under eating. Even intense fasting can be stressful on the body if you're weak. Yeah. So the people who wake up and they fast, but they have a cup of black coffee. Coffee does release some of the stress hormones. It puts you in what's called a sympathetic state. So it's going to release norepinephrine and epinephrine. And then you go work out, which causes more stress hormones. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you're going to lose weight at first, but then months in, especially if you're a female, because females' hormonal systems are much more complicated, you're going to realize that you start to gain weight. And you're like, what's happening? And that's because of cortisol. That's because of the chronic stress that you're putting your body in. And then you kind of have that high cortisol in your system. And another really interesting thing about the fasting story is that most people I meet, men too, that come to me for sleep issues, for insomnia, I'm like, do you fast?
Intermittent fasting.
And most of the time it's yes. And, we have way more about that in our sleep class. And just when your adrenals are just kind of at wit's end and stressed, fasting is not.
Yeah.
But fasting can be amazing. There's so many health benefits of fasting. But it's not for everyone, and it's not for all times of life.
Well, and I've done an extended fast twice in my life and slept terrible. Like when you're like day 2 of a fast or day 3, everyone who's done that, you cannot sleep.
Yeah. Let me think. A couple more nutritional stressors would be genetically modified foods and nutrient deficiencies because, our bodies run on minerals. 9,000 different enzymatic reactions, or probably more, that need to happen in the body all the time. And minerals are cofactors for all of these reactions. So if you have mineral deficiencies, this is going to be a form of stress in your body because your body has to work harder. Your body's going to have to borrow minerals from some other place in order to continue life-sustaining activities within the body. So that's, along those same lines, genetically modified food, pesticides and herbicides, those all stress the body. The liver has to work harder to remove these pesticides and herbicides. Some of these herbicides, like glyphosate, act as an antibiotic in the body. And so this is chronic stress. Also, along the lines of environmental, it could be air pollution, it could be heavy metals, could be EMF exposure. And we're all exposed to different wireless technologies all the time. Smart meters. Smart meters are so damaging
What are
to the
those
body.
on the house?
Yeah. So we
Don't
used
we
to
all have them?
well, we used to have analog meters.
Okay.
And in some states, like California, you can opt out of the smart meter. You pay like $15 more a month, and they still come by every month to read it. Smart meter technology, it kind of bounces throughout your house. It bounces like this radiation and bounces, and it makes the dirty electricity even that much greater. And then they bounce along all the other houses until they get to
I'm kind of getting stressed out.
Yeah, don't get stressed out. So anyways, we can't avoid, I mean, there's certain things we can avoid. We can have, like this right here is what I put my phone in, and this is silver.
Okay.
There's silver in here. My mom makes these.
This is so cool.
Yeah, so we should have this. So
Yeah.
silver, it blocks the
EMFs.
cellular EMFs. Yeah,
Okay.
so I will like feel good about holding my phone.
Well, and this thing is what I have, this pad on my under my
Great.
laptop. It
That's amazing.
because you sit with your, think about it, you got your computer sitting on your lap. How terrible is that? And so I have this, you guys can't see it, but it's called a Defender pad, and it blocks. So I even knew about that a little bit.
That's
But
great.
not so much.
Yeah, so that is just another form of stress. And I don't want you to stress about these stressors because we are all exposed to it. And I'm going to go into some things that can help mitigate, especially EMF stresses, like magnesium. Magnesium supports the integrity of the cell. It is actually a calcium channel blocker. And what happens with the EMFs is that they open the calcium channels. And so magnesium can actually support the integrity of the outer part of the cell. So if you're exposed to excessive EMFs, you can just take extra magnesium and really help mitigate that. There's other things you can do. When you go to bed, turn your phone off. Turn it on airplane mode at the very least.
100%.
Turn your Wi-Fi off. You can turn your house Wi-Fi off.
I need to start.
Yeah, I try to make that a point. Just little things like that. Anything. Don't get smart appliances if possible. So just things like that.
Dumb ones. I like some.
Okay, so physical stressors, surgery, illness. What's really interesting is when you go through surgery multiple times, it really weakens your adrenal glands. And
I heard you talking on a consult with just multiple surgeries. I'm like, and you don't think about that, how stressful that is. Even anesthesia is like
so stressful on the body.
Okay.
Yeah, so when somebody comes to me and I know that they're having some kind of a stress-related illness, even if it's a cough that they get rid of, that's most of the time due to a stress-related illness.
Yeah.
And I'll dig into what happened over the past year. What have they been exposed to? Have they had surgeries? Even different illnesses and different infections are very stressful on the body. And it's kind of like a catch-22 or a vicious cycle, because if you have a really bad respiratory infection, it's stressful on the body and it can be harder to recover, and your adrenals are a little bit weakened.
Yeah.
And your immune system is suppressed then, and then you might go right back into another respiratory infection just because of the stress that put on the body.
It's a vicious cycle.
It can be a vicious cycle, and it can be hard to break. Although if you know about the power of adaptogens, it can be very easy to break.
She can fix you.
So other things can be dehydration. That can be very, very stressful on the body.
Then I better take a drink.
Fatigue, lack of sleep. You do it to yourself. I spent so many years as a single mom running a business, and I prided myself on the fact that I only needed 4 hours a night of sleep. And I was like, I never get sick. This is all I need. I would just pop all my herbs and, but then after a while, it catches up to you.
You have to pay your dues.
You have to. And then of course there's the regular psychological stresses that we know about. So another thing I just want to touch on, this last thing, would be endocrine disruptors like plastics. Plastics are incredibly damaging to the body. They're endocrine disruptors, meaning they disrupt our normal hormonal system, and especially in women. I find that a lot of women nowadays have really high estrogen levels, really low progesterone, and that's normally because of these endocrine disruptors. We're exposed to them all over, even in a receipt that you take at the grocery store. Don't touch your receipts.
And
good.
because you taught me that.
Yeah.
Okay, no yoga pants. pants.
No, yeah, well, yoga pants if
Yeah,
they're
explain that.
organic cotton, but not if they're made out of chemicals, or especially those yoga pants where they're like, oh, these are made out of recycled plastic water bottles.
Yeah, no way.
No,
You don't want that on our
no.
body.
Our skin is our largest absorption organ, so be careful of what you put on your skin.
No
and that,
lotion.
That goes, well, I mean, lotions if it's good
Yeah,
for you.
teach
but
them.
yeah, I have a friend that makes this amazing tallow. That's all I use on my skin, and we'll have to have her on.
Yeah.
And show how she renders her tallow and puts it together.
I love that.
Yeah. So anyways, so much more, so many more great classes we're going to have. But yeah, these are all examples of different stresses that you can be going through and not even knowing it. And I guess one more thing with the minivan.
Oh,
the minivan.
I learned so much.
I talked a little bit about this when I was telling my story and how I came down with a really bad autoimmune disease. And then I ended up with, barely any cortisol, like very, very low cortisol. But one of the stressors that I didn't realize that my body was going through was we lived in Michigan in the middle of winter, and I bought a minivan because I had 3 little kids and I'm driving them around everywhere, windows up. You know that smell, that new car smell.
That everyone thinks is a great smell.
New cars are loaded with chemicals. Loaded. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you to do if you want to buy a new car and you live windows down. Don't buy it in the winter if you live in a state where there is a
convertibles,
winter.
guys. Just get convertibles.
So this is another thing, and I'll go a little bit more into my story from a cortisol and adrenal perspective as we proceed with this class. I just want to reiterate how the initial stress response works. So the amygdala, which is part of our brain, will sense the distress signal, and it will send a signal to the hypothalamus, which then sends a signal to the pituitary gland, and then to the adrenal gland. So the adrenal glands are where a lot of these stress hormones are produced. The adrenal glands make a lot of different hormones as well, like estrogen and progesterone and testosterone and DHEA and all these other sex hormones. But yeah, so basically the body's natural physiological response would be, again, the blood goes to the muscles so you can run. All functions necessary for survival are prioritized. Your pupils will dilate, your blood pressure increases, your airways will open.
I felt all of that.
So you can run more when that moose is chasing you. I cannot believe
you would be amazed how fast you are when the moose is.
Yeah.
Rutting season. Thanks. That's what it was. It's when they mate. It's called rutting.
Rutting.
And they're very assertive and aggressive.
Wow.
It was scary as
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I was that's what it was like with the bear. I thought I was worried not about mating season, but about if the mother had a cub.
Yep, yeah, I heard that.
And otherwise, I knew that the bear wouldn't have wanted anything to do with me. But I was like, oh my gosh, if there's a cub somewhere, I better run fast. Yeah. And so basically, we have the autonomic nervous system is composed of 2 different parts, and that will be the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic.
This is all sounding familiar from biology.
So sympathetic is like fight or flight. It's like the stress and the gas is on the pedal.
Yeah.
But then you have to be able to get back into the parasympathetic state, which is rest and digest. We need to be in the parasympathetic state in order to be able to sleep well, digest our food, even for proper hormone balance, especially if you're a woman and you're trying to have a baby.
Yeah.
It's really important to have proper progesterone to estrogen levels, and really getting into that parasympathetic state is very important for this to be able to happen.
It makes sense now why infertility rates are through the roof. If you think about everything you've just said and hearing you bring it back to trying to be able to have a baby, I'm like, well, no wonder.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I know. So, and it's not just the stress, obviously, but it's the plastics. But what's funny is when you are under stress, your cortisol rises, your estrogen is just higher, your thyroid level then is decreased because everything works synergistically. That's why the body is there's so much innate intelligence in the body, and all of the systems work together. And I marvel at the intelligence of the body. Like every day I'll learn something new and I'll be like, I can't believe this happens within us.
Yeah, and that's why when one thing gets out of whack, it can throw so much out of whack. And why you're so easily able to fix people starting to make sense too, because you just kind of have to you just make that little tweak and the body wants to be in balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get back into balance, homeostasis, and then your body knows what to do.
Yeah.
So
I love
yeah.
it.
Okay, so really quick, basically after this initial surge of adrenaline, if the body wants to stay up, then cortisol is released.
Okay.
And that kind of happens. And that's what happens when we're under chronic stress. And that's why cortisol has been called the stress hormone. Okay. So basically what happens after the stress response subsides? So here we have part of the adrenal gland, which is the adrenal medulla that has activated all of these stress hormones. And then what happens after that is if the stress continues, then the adrenal cortex releases cortisol. And the cortisol is released to kind of keep the energy going so that you can continue running farther. You can the moose chases you for longer.
Yeah.
And you can run farther and longer. And what happens is that when we are constantly perceiving, our body is constantly perceiving this threat, we're constantly releasing cortisol. And that is when we start to have problems because this low level stress, which is constantly releasing cortisol levels, that is where we can run into the problems from either too high or too low of cortisol levels.
Sense. Okay, so I want to know, how do I know that I'm stressed? I mean, because we now know we're stressed.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the symptoms or things that I'll notice about my life?
Okay. Well, you might have chronic headaches or migraines. You might have low energy. You might have trouble focusing. You might have different hormonal imbalances. You might have digestive issues. You might have full-on anxiety and feel like you're having panic attacks. You might get chronic respiratory infections. You might have just irritability, lack of focus. That wake up at 2 a.m. every night, or
sleep.
just definitely sleep. And we have a full sleep class, which goes into a lot more detail into like the circadian rhythm and how to support your sleep. But yeah, all of this, even your like fluid and electrolyte balance can be really affected when you're under chronic stress, especially because the adrenal glands also regulate fluid and electrolyte balance. Another thing that the adrenal glands regulate is blood sugar. Okay. So if you're under chronic stress, you might become hypoglycemic throughout the day. Like if you don't eat enough, if you don't eat every couple hours, you're all of a sudden shaky and dizzy because your blood sugar dips. And just as this vicious cycle will precipitate, every time your blood sugar dips, you go into a sympathetic state, and that puts your body into more stress. So it's those vicious cycles that you have to break when you're healing your body from chronic stress.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I'm sure everyone in this class has had some of those symptoms. We know you're under stress.
Definitely. And I do want to talk a little bit about cortisol. And our bodies follow this diurnal cortisol pattern, and cortisol peaks in the morning. And cortisol gives us the energy to wake. It's called the cortisol awakening response, and cortisol is essential to life.
It's not all bad.
It's not all bad.
It gets a bad rap.
It gets a bad rap. But cortisol is essential. It is the stress hormone, but you can't survive without it. So when I was 27 and I healed myself from a really bad autoimmune disease, I was so thankful that I was able to heal my body. But at that point, the stress that I had been under caused me to go into complete adrenal fatigue. And at that point, I realized how important cortisol is for survival. I could barely walk up the stairs. I was so weak, and I was really healthy. I was, healthy.
You still
fit.
are.
Yeah. But I would rollerblade and I would run, and I had 3 young kids, and I was, a do-it-aller. And every time I went to the grocery store, I would have a panic attack. I would get into the line, and most of the time I couldn't make it. I would have to run out, even leave my groceries there. It was fully embarrassing. The only way I could get through that is if I had my baby with me, and I would hold my baby, and that's just the maternal instinct that overrides everything else. I felt like I couldn't breathe like all the time, and it would get worse in the mid-afternoon. And that's, what's interesting is that the mid-afternoon is kind of when you have like a little bit of low, like your cortisol levels go a little bit low. So a lot of people will have that mid-afternoon crash.
Yeah.
Um,
That's how you knew because I told her I was struggling with like binge urges, and I was like, man, come mid-afternoon, I can't fight it anymore. And you knew. When I said mid-afternoon, it was like, oh.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, and then I just started having respiratory infections all the time. And I was like, well, I can't take an antibiotic because I had a terrible reaction to an antibiotic. So I'm never going to take an antibiotic again. And I haven't taken an antibiotic since I was 27. So it's been 21 years, which goes to show you can definitely keep your body healthy without using antibiotics. So at that point, I really realized like you need cortisol. You need the right level of cortisol for energy. You need it for hormone regulation. You need cortisol to regulate your blood sugar. I would have hypoglycemia all the time. I had to have food in my purse with me all the time because I was always scared my blood sugar would dip way, way low. So the right amount of cortisol is needed for a proper inflammatory response, energy, and blood sugar regulation and hormone balance. And so cortisol really is important. And at that point, what I did is I started doing a deep dive into the adrenal glands because I didn't really know that much then. I didn't trust herbs very much. And what's cool is that from doing the research into the adrenal glands, I did a deep dive into the adaptogenic herbs, and it changed my life. I just have to say right now, 21 years ago, ashwagandha saved my life, along with a couple other things. But, adaptogenic herbs are any type of, well, they're not just herbs. So plants, which would be an herb or a medicinal mushroom, because some mushrooms are adaptogens, help keep your body in homeostasis and help your body be more resistant to stress. And what's really cool is that a lot of these adaptogenic herbs used to grow in just like high elevation, like Siberia. You've heard of Siberian ginseng, which is a lithero root. And this was grown in high altitude, high elevations where people need support dealing with the cold and dealing with lower oxygenation levels. And so these adaptogens are so powerful that they help your body adapt. They keep your body in homeostasis. And I always like to use the thermostat analogy that they're these smart little things that go into the body and know exactly what your body needs.
Yeah.
Keep your body into homeostasis. So the thermostat tells, you if the temperature is too hot in the room, then the temperature is decreased. If it's too cold, then the temperature is increased. And that's what these adaptogens do. And that's why you can take an adaptogenic herb like ashwagandha, which will not only help with immunity, with focus, with libido, with thyroid hormone, but with energy and with sleep.
So everyone should be on ashwagandha.
Well, if you're under any type of stress, which most of us are today, I mean, it's amazing how, in terms of like the pharmaceutical world, you're like, oh no, you're going to take one thing to help you sleep and one thing to give you energy. But no, these smart adaptogenic herbs really balance the body. So they support your cortisol balance and your melatonin. Basically your sleep-wake cycle, which involves cortisol and melatonin.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to say that even though all of these adaptogenic herbs, a lot of them have grown in the past in harsh climates, today more than ever, we need them here too.
Yeah.
And it's different type. We're not, climbing mountains with barely any oxygen and running away from predators. But we are putting stress on our bodies.
Yeah, after we just learned about it, we are definitely under a lot of stress. Well, it's funny because people have tried ashwagandha or other herbs before and not gotten results. And that's why I appreciated the supplements that you sent me, because you knew the ones that were efficacious or good brands. I've been in the nutraceutical space for over a decade, and I can tell you this, they're not all created equal. A lot of these companies cut corners, or they have fillers or the excipients, and where they get their ingredients, we don't even know. Some people stringently test, and there are more mandates on, but whatever she tells me, I take, because she's done the research. And I was like, no, there's so many on Amazon, which one to buy? You got to get the right ones, guys. So if you've tried them before and supplements didn't work or herbs didn't work, I tell you, you might have just been buying a crappy brand.
Definitely. I've been formulating supplements now for 20 years, so I know the suppliers, I know the farms they come with, I know the processing agents that they use. Some companies, especially if the herb is not certified organic, they will use a lot of harsh chemicals, and you don't want it processed that way.
More stress.
More stress on the body, especially if there's chemical residue. I'm not saying that every single supplement you get has to be certified organic.
No.
It's just about the way that they source and the way that they process. Now, some supplements can't be certified organic, such as like a mineral, magnesium. The magnesium is definitely something I'm going to recommend, especially because if you're under stress, your magnesium burn rate increases. So you need more magnesium. Our soils are very deficient in magnesium. So magnesium was one of the most important supplements that I'm going to say everybody should be taking.
Yeah, and just making sure some certified testing is going on to say what is in that label is what is actually what you're putting in your body.
Definitely. Yeah, so, we have this amazing handout, and we're going to go into in this handout what to take to heal your adrenals, to kind of get out of this vicious cycle, the stress cycle. I'm going to list like the top adaptogens, the top brands. We're going to talk a little bit about the gut and some things that you can do to support your gut, because what's really interesting is that most of our serotonin and our GABA, which is like inhibitory neurotransmitter, it's made by your microbiome. And if your gut is not in a healthy state, let's say you're eating food with glyphosate, and glyphosate is actually an antibiotic, and you're killing your microbiome, and you're like, what is glyphosate? How do I know what food has glyphosate in it? And, I hate to say that, most non-organic foods do contain glyphosate. Some organic supplements still contain glyphosate. So it's really important here to know your farmers, go to the farmer's market, talk to them about what they use. Try to avoid spraying Roundup whenever possible. Don't use Roundup, because when we spray glyphosate, it stays. It's water soluble. It's really hard to get rid of it. It stays 50 years. If we all stop spraying glyphosate right now, it would take 50 years to undo. Yeah. And, our soils are like these living with all these microorganisms and everything that the plant, we need these microorganisms to break down the minerals so that the plant can utilize these minerals. And glyphosate kills everything in the soil. And so it's it's a quick fix. Sure, it's an herbicide. It'll kill all the weeds you don't want, but we are damaging everything. So if you want to buy a protein powder, I'm not a super big advocate of protein powders because they are a little bit more processed, but we don't need to be perfect. We are on the go a lot. If you are, know you're going to be on the go, I would rather you have a protein shake in your car, a good quality one, rather than let your blood sugar drop and go into that sympathetic stress response. Look for the glyphosate residue-free badge if you buy a protein. You can go to the detoxproject.org and look at all of the brands that have the glyphosate residue-free badge, because sometimes even certified organic products have.
Wow, I had no idea. I thought if it was certified organic, we were good.
Yeah, should be good. Yeah.
Well, you have a full nutrition class too, where that's a good class.
So in this guide, you are going to have a comprehensive list of the different adaptogenic herbs and medicinal mushrooms you can use. There's, one of my favorite mushrooms is reishi. I love reishi. Reishi is the most grounding of all the medicinal mushrooms. It is a potent adaptogen. It has been the most studied mushroom for sleep cycles. So what I do with reishi is I take 1 gram in the morning with my coffee, and I take 1 gram before I go to bed. Okay. So it works for both. The reason why I like to use it in my coffee, because sometimes if you're consuming a cup of coffee, it can release stress hormones, can activate the sympathetic stress system. And I like to make my coffee into medicine. I always use organic coffee. I always add some protein to my coffee, whether it's an egg yolk. Sometimes I will add a egg yolk in there, and it makes it really creamy and frothy, a raw egg yolk. And then sometimes I'll add some bone broth powder. and then I'll add the coffee, and then I'll add like a gram of reishi, sometimes cordyceps, sometimes shaga mushroom.
Your coffee
And then,
sounds quite
it's yeah, I don't mess around. And then I'll add cacao to it, maybe some chaste tree berry and maca. Anyways, and then I
You're
froth
just picking
some.
things off your farm?
I,
These supplements on hand or
oh
herbs?
right, you should see. Yeah, I will do a class where I make my medicinal coffee. It is.
really
I
should see
seriously
that.
go to bed at night and I think about it, and I can't wait to wake up. And I'm like, I can't wait. Anyways, and then I'll froth some like raw goat's milk or something like that. So my coffee is filled with
Medicine.
protein and fat and adaptogens. And whenever you add adaptogenic herbs or medicinal mushrooms to your coffee, it helps to mitigate that stress response.
Smart. Yeah.
And it's such a great way because, obviously some people are like, oh, I'm going to try to avoid coffee altogether. But you know what? You love coffee. 1 cup a day isn't going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt your adrenal glands. It's about everything in moderation. And sometimes I say that the stress of stressing about not having something is going to be more stressful on your body, than just like letting yourself enjoy it, because life should also be enjoyable. Yeah. So I think that if you have something beautiful, like a gourmet, wonderful coffee as part of your ritual, add your medicine to it.
I like that.
Yeah. And it's kind of like when people indulge in that piece of cake and they're like, oh yeah, the person who stresses about eating that cake is going to have more problems eating that cake than the person who's just like,
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That you always say moderation in all things and balance. I think that's just a really healthy mindset.
Yeah. And it's hard. That's why a lot of these adaptogenic herbs will really help stop some compulsory behaviors.
Yeah.
And some anxiety and
the obsessive thoughts.
The obsessiveness.
Yeah.
And
I noticed that.
And like non-negotiable and like I have to do this every day no matter what. It'll kind of just chill you out a little bit.
I can testify. I never miss a workout. I'll never go to bed if I don't stretch or do. Had an eating disorder background, and I just told her, I'm like, I go to bed and I'm like, I didn't get my stretches in. That would never happen before. I wouldn't just go to bed. It would be 3 a.m. and I would still do my stretches. It's just and I always thought that's such a discipline. I was like, that's so ridiculous.
And we're not like saying, oh, you should be lazy and you should do anything, but it's okay. Give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Because life throws us curveballs all the time. And this kind of will really just help, with adrenal balance. We're not going to sweat the small things. That's really important. So
a piece. I thought I would lose my competitive edge. Still have that competitive edge, but I think peace is just the best way to explain it. I feel balanced, like that thermostat inside is regulated.
Yeah, I always say with adaptogens, and here's one more thing about adaptogen is normally you take them long term. So I always say that sometimes you take your first dose and you feel like subtle calmness. Some people don't feel anything for like a week. No. But adaptogenic herbs are different than, taking a shot of caffeine or taking a pharmaceutical. And some herbs work more immediately, but adaptogens work behind the scene to establish balance. So you need to take them for long term. I mean, I would say if you're on an adaptogenic protocol, give it 3 months. Give it 3 months and see how you feel. And you're going to definitely notice a difference in all of these clues that your body is going into better balance, whether you're like less forgetful, you're forgetting where your keys are less, you're more focused, your mood is a little bit, you're just a little happier, you maybe don't have that afternoon crash, you're maybe sleeping better, and wow, I haven't gotten sick, I'm exposed to people, but I haven't even gotten anything. And these are little clues that you'll find when you start to establish balance. So
yeah, we should make people journal, because I think some people will just forget, like it'll become their new norm that they feel this awesome, and then they think they won't remember.
It's a great idea. Like every week, every Sunday, you like how you feel. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. So our handout will contain all of the adaptogenic herbs and medicinal mushrooms that you can take.
And what's nice is she tells you when to take them and how much, and she gives you the link, which for me, I was like, because if someone has a recipe and they're like, just a pinch of that, pinch of this, I need to be like, is it 1 tablespoon? Is it, that's me. Write it out. We're giving you the recipe.
Yes, I'll make it easy for you. We're also going to add some nervine herbs in, and these are herbs that like directly impact the nervous system. Some of them are stronger than others. Like if you have trouble sleeping, you could try some valerian root. If you just need some extra calm in the mid-afternoon and the evening, lemon balm, skullcap, passion flower. These are all really great choices. I'm also going to go over sodium.
Okay.
And the importance of sodium, the importance of electrolyte. When I was in complete adrenal fatigue, I needed so much more sodium. Craved it. Because your adrenals need sodium, your adrenal glands need potassium, because your adrenals are also intricately involved in fluid and electrolyte balance. And these are important electrolytes that are needed for everything that happens, like, the electrical impulse of your cells, the cell communication.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're low in electrolytes, you might find yourself feeling really bad. And, a lot of people who are on this very low sodium diet because they think they're helping their blood pressure, they actually go into adrenal fatigue because they've got so much sodium.
I was told to avoid salt, so I never put salt on anything, but now I'm like, okay, I'm going to be putting salt on stuff again.
It's energizing. And, there's not all salt is created equal. I don't love the chemically processed and extracted, like just plain table salt.
Okay.
I definitely love real salt. That's the name of the brand. It's called Real Salt, just loaded with probably 84 plus trace minerals. That will be 40% sodium, 60% chloride.
Okay.
Really important electrolytes again.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll go into that. We will also go into magnesium, the best type of magnesium, how to take magnesium, because magnesium deficiencies, magnesium is so important for, I don't know, like thousands and thousands, probably like 4,000 different reactions in the body. Absolutely necessary for ATP synthesis. ATP is cellular energy because it's needed within the mitochondrial membrane during the electron transport chain, which is when ATP is formed. So you need magnesium for that. You need magnesium for your heart, for your muscles, for your nerves, for your bones, for your thyroid, for, just everything.
Magnesium's a powerhouse.
Magnesium is a powerhouse, and again, really helps mitigate stress. So we'll go into magnesium, how to take when, like the best type of brands. We'll go into the adrenal cocktail, which is an amazing drink that you can make yourself every day or twice a day to support healthy adrenal glands. It is a source of, like, you use whole food vitamin C with like squeezing oranges or something like that. Vitamin C is a very important adrenal vitamin. So, vitamin C, and then you will add some salt and you'll add some potassium, whether it's from cream of tartar or just coconut water. And you can drink this twice a day. Very energizing and balancing.
Taste good?
Tastes amazing.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So we'll have the recipe for that or something?
Definitely.
Okay.
We can do the recipe for the adrenal cocktail. It's super simple.
I love adrenal cocktail. Doesn't cocktail mean alcohol?
Technically, yeah, but I guess it's an adrenal mocktail.
Mocktail, okay, because I was like, wait, is there some alcohol?
And then, lastly, go into some of the importance of trace minerals to add to your regimen, as well as some B vitamins, especially B5, which is like really essential for the adrenal glands.
Okay. Yeah.
And, as well as some amino acids. Amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, are so important for your nervous system as well, and even helpful for your circadian rhythm and to sleep at night. So we'll go into all this. And again, you can always book a consultation if you want some one-on-one time.
Yeah. I think the stacks that we provide are awesome starting points. If you have underlying complications or just medical conditions, or you're like, I want you to just look at my life and fix me.
And labs, look at your labs. You can upload your labs and I can look at those.
It was amazing because you could see and build something custom to me.
Yeah.
It was life-changing, so thank you. Well, Shania, thank you so much for this class today. I don't know about you guys, but I have learned so much about stress and anxiety and what we can do to mitigate it. We don't need to be more stressed about everything we just learned.
Don't stress about your stress.
Yeah, don't stress about your stress, because she's given us solutions, and I am here to testify that they work. And I've seen it work. I've been able to see Shania do several consultations, and she's helped so many people over the years. That's why we want to make sure we get this information out to as many of you as possible. And if you can share it with the people you know, love, and care for, the body wants to be well. The Ginger Sage is here to help take you along on that balance, wellness journey. And we look forward to seeing you in some of our other classes. So make sure you get the download below and get started.